Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Contiki Rugby. Again, welcome to our guest, Special K, and also Saki. How are you boys doing?
Malolele Talofalava. Great to be back.
Bolivinaka. Excited to be back.
It's
Thank you. What a lovely
World Cup for the ages. Fiji has dented the universe of rugby. Never ever going to be the same. There's so much to talk about. It's so exciting.
Yeah, what a tremendous performance by Fiji against Australia. It was a titanic game, and the crowd was into it. What an atmosphere, and what a great advertisement for the game of rugby, really. So what an awesome game.
What was the best part of the weekend for you guys? One best part for the weekend. I know we missed 1 week, but what was the best? What was one of your best moment of the game?
Stop rubbing that in. Okay, let me just apologize. I didn't press record the last time. But don't push my buttons.
Okay.
I love the question that you're giving me. Why? Because what my favorite part is every single team has developed, except a couple of other teams. I won't mention it. The one that your jersey that you're wearing, the level and the standard of rugby around the world, amazing.
Thank you, Special K. Saki?
And I think each week the competition in the tournament format has just got better and better. I mean, like Special K said, teams are getting better, but with that, their performances are showing up on the scoreboards, are showing up in the crowds, and barring that big blowout, France versus I think it was Chile. Oh no, France versus Namibia. Barring that, the plays were just amazing. Really, everyone's pulled up their game, and especially the Ireland versus South Africa game. That was next level. The intensity of that match, which we'll talk about, but that was an awesome game to watch.
Okay, and I picked Ireland to win. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Session that we wasn't recorded.
It wasn't recorded, so it doesn't really count. Whatever you said.
Wait.
I
picked South Africa. I was wrong.
Same here. I picked South Africa.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the highlight of the last couple of weeks' games was just the discipline. Seeing how the tier 2 teams has really ramped up the discipline compared to the tier 1 nations.
You get a yellow card or you get a red card, forget about it. You lost the game.
Yeah.
And that's how competitive the World Cup games are. But also to what I found out, Sake, this is my observation. If your kickers are not 90%, minimum 85% kickers, you find it very hard to win games. Those close games.
Yeah.
E.g., for example, the South Africa against Ireland.
Yeah.
Was that planned? Was that planned, though? Was that planned?
Wow. Was it planned? Was it pre-planned?
Was it pre-planned? Okay. Before we go into the detail, I think, look at this. Would you rather play New Zealand when they're very vulnerable in the quarters, or you play France, who's just lost their number 1 halfback in the world, the world-class halfback, who are also, on the injured list? South Africa will play France, and now the winner of that pool, which is Ireland, is going to be playing against All Blacks. Do you think maybe it's conspiracy? It's just me.
You've put on that a row hat, and now you're a detective and you're a conspiracy theorist. Right?
No. Is it a plan? What do you think?
Some practical advice about this.
Is it the hat or is it the jersey?
I'm starting to think outside the box because of the jersey.
What do you think, Saki?
Oh, look, I think South Africa rolled the dice and they went with LeBlanc. And then partway through, they went to the halfback, Flat de Kirk, I think. Yeah, and he missed his goals, kicks. I mean, let's be honest. South Africa, I think they had a 20% kicking record in that game.
Never,
I mean, when have you seen South Africa with a 20% kicking record?
Never ever.
I mean, that's just
mind
blowing.
Always have strong first fives.
Exactly. So,
kickers,
so really, when you really think about it, I mean, South Africa were the more dominant team, but they just missed their kicks. I mean, their set piece was strong, their defense was strong, their collisions at the breakdown. I mean, they were fast and on both sides actually. Ireland as well. They were clean. The tackles coming in, they were ferocious tackles, but they were all, at fast pace. Your technique needs to be spot on, and just for them to, be able to keep that technique in that type of intensity, with that type of intensity. I mean,
right.
that was another level. That was another level, and it's actually a good indication of what the All Blacks will be facing, and France will be facing. So heads up for them.
I think it's unfair. I think South Africa is still experimenting their play. Come quarterfinals, semi-final, finals, it'll be a different story altogether. It's just unfair. I think it's unfair whoever's going to play them, because they just don't know what they're going to come up against. I think they have a world-class number 10 sitting on the bench. Pollard. You got to think, what's the game plan here? But anyway, we can't wait for the finals tonight. Spencer, okay? Anything before we jump into the most important game of the past week?
Besides, I can't go past the defense of Ireland. Fire with fire. I don't know what the other term is, but I'll tell you something. They have no fear in defense. And Ireland now is put that into their repertoire, and I think they're going to steamroll. They're going to get this momentum. And in much everybody's mind, though, why is that the South Africa is beatable. I'll give you that. What's that? The tall second rower. Sorry, this is how good I am. My rugby knowledge is.
Yeah.
He's played his third World Cup. Ran the ball. They picked him up and drove him back. What's his name? He's a monster, and I think I love it.
Yeah. Even their winger, the one from New Zealand. I forget his name as well now. But there was some goal line defense there that was, it was desperation.
Ex-Crusader.
Desperation, and but it necessitated that desperation, and it was him that he was able to actually knock the ball on when the South Africans were hot on the line. There were a couple of times there where I just thought that just saved the try. Yes, South Africa dropped a couple of balls right on the try line. You look at the captain Khaleesi dropping that ball, but I think Ireland, yes, they started off with a shaky start, losing their lineouts, but after that they sort of settled into their work, and they just cracked on. There seemed to be a belief that they could do this.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, let's jump onto the Pacific Island games that we have in the weekend. Let's see.
I'll tell you how impressed I was with Samoa. Amazing. Some of the yellow cards, and they just had, it really destroyed their momentum. But they were coming back home strong, and I just felt if it was a longer, they would have won that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Fiji and Australia, gentlemen. Let's talk about Fiji and Australia. What was your thought before this game even started? What were you thinking? And looking at the final score compared to when the game started.
If Fiji can beat England, Fiji can beat any team in this competition. So yes, can we believe? I believe that they can go so far if they just continue on that momentum.
Yeah.
I think I was worried about their kicking, their first five, the areas of the field that they were willing to play in. And, we think of Fiji as like the flying Fijians that play with flair. But they actually played a structured type of rugby that they've somewhat developed over the year. But this was to perfection almost, with those box kicks, their exit plays, and then their attack from the 50. Most of the game was played between the 22s, but every time they attacked, their carries over the game line was impressive. But if anything, it was their defense, their turnovers. I mean, Botia and Tuisova. I mean, hindsight's a great thing, but maybe they should have started in that Welsh game, because man, did they just cause havoc for the Aussies. And I think that's where the game was won and lost for Australia. But from Fiji's point of view, I mean, they only scored one try, but because of their defense and their
game
and their attention to the rucks, and their set piece. I mean, that scrum was solid. The lineouts were solid. Maybe it kind of faltered at the end there when the subs came on, but still, even though they were able to compensate still with that defense and those rucks turnover. Yeah. I mean, we're pretty blessed to have our players supposedly at the peak of their prime right now. Something I can't say for the Aussies, but what a game by notable names would be Tuisova, Botia, and of course Kuruvolier. I mean, how can we go past him? I mean, here he is kicking from under 20s and so on, and backup kicking the Drua, and here he is kicking in a do or die match really to get them into the quarterfinals, and he nails every single one of them. I mean, where has this guy been? Like, and that's one thing. He's been a revelation for Fiji, and that's exactly what they needed to have confidence moving into the quarterfinals.
And one thing I heard this week about Fiji is Tier 1 nations are getting worried about Fiji now because Fiji is starting to play Northern Hemisphere style rugby. Is that true?
Yes, and yes. Absolutely. If you were to not know who's playing, and maybe they're wearing a different jersey, you can that is an absolute thing that I think that they've improved on. They know how to play the Northern Hemisphere rugby. They know now how to play the Southern Hemisphere rugby, and then they have included into that mix of players that could, and I think the Barbarians game that will come in the future. A lot of the Fijians will be in the top 15. So I'm so excited about Fiji and where they're at the moment.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you. What are your thoughts on the kicking game that they had in the last 8 minutes? There was like 11 back and forth kick from Australia to Fiji. So you could understand why Australia was kicking. They're already behind, trying to chase the game. But could you believe the amount of kicks Fiji was giving back to Australia? I mean, that's something you don't see very often coming from the Fiji side, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't understand why the Aussies were kicking so much, because they had to somehow get into they had to run it, and it was Fiji didn't fall into that trap to run it back, and they just kicked it back. And big full credit to the fullback Androsese. I think he's grown leaps and bounds, and he's actually got a stronger punt than most people think. But he's now using it in the right time and in the right places. Yeah, so whereas Australia, for the life of me, I couldn't understand why they were kicking so much, because they were chasing the game and they needed as much possession as they could. And I'm so happy that Fiji didn't fall into that trap, and that's how you
run the ball.
Yeah, and that's how you know that this team is developing its intellectual, it's rugby IQ really, and that you've got to pay homage to the coaches for that. They've obviously worked on that throughout the week, and all that intellectual properties being filtered down to the players, and the players, and this is the most important thing, the players understand that. And one of the things that I think Special K brought up is the potential that Fiji has. You see, if Fiji is so used to this structure, if they develop this structural game, at any moment in time, because of that athleticism and they're just genetic freaks of nature, every other team, I mean, how they played would send chills down the spine of every other team, knowing that at any point Fiji can play both a structural game and that expensive game, right? And that's what Fiji, if they continue to develop this structural game, they can easily, I think, get into the semifinals. England haven't quite.
Don't stop there, Saki. Don't stop there.
Yeah,
go with your heart. They're going to go past the semi-final. Say it from your heart.
Well, I mean, England haven't quite developed that game yet, where they can pass the ball around. I mean, their backline doesn't go past first five. They kick most of their possession away, and they play that pressurized game. But you just look at the way that Ireland play. I mean, the way that Ireland's playing, for me, it's just beautiful to watch, because they don't play. They can at any time play that expensive game, and the linking between their forwards and backs. And that's what, yes, they've got structure attached to that, But if Fiji are able to somewhat not copy it, but are able to develop that type of play between their forwards and their backs, then I think they can go all the way, even to the finals if they need be. But definitely, I absolutely believe that they can make it to the semi-finals.
Exactly. Because my second team is Australia. That's why we're looking at Australia and
the first
Wales.
team last week, and now it's become the second team. Can you
That's
make up your
always been-
mind which team you're going for first?
I'm right where I want to be, mate. You don't have to question me on that one. Okay? we're right where we wanted to be. So I think Australian Wales, I think it's important for us to look at these games as well, because they're the same pool as Fiji. Now that Australia's lost 2 of its last games against Fiji and Wales, we just put Australia in 3rd place. So Fiji's got a very better chance of moving into the quarterfinals now if they win their last 2 games against Georgia and Portugal. And which brings us to our next slide. Ah, man, you know what? It's a good wish. Right? This is what we've tried to put together, and hopefully this is a hope of the nation here, right here. Hope of the nation. So as we know, since we are so much into we talk about Ireland rugby all the time, we would like the Ireland teams to actually make it to the final. So in Pool A, we have France and New Zealand come out of that pool. Right? Samoa, and then Pool B, we have South Africa and England, which are coming out of the pool. And we have Wales and Fiji coming out of the Pool C. And Pool D will have England and Samoa, hopefully Samoa. All right? I know I actually put this together last week. This was before Samoa's second game. So hopefully some miracles will happen this week that will enable Samoa to get out of that pool. So in quarterfinal 1, we're having Wales play Samoa. And the winner of that game, hopefully, will be Samoa. And then we have South Africa versus New Zealand. Who do you think is going to win this game?
They've been planning for the last 4 years. It's going to be a cracker.
Between South Africa and New Zealand, who do you think is going to win?
No comment from me.
I mean, whatever you say now is going to stay in this record. So,
but the last time I was about to be arrested, I said no comment.
Just say because you are low, then your pick was wrong.
I'm gonna go South Africa.
I'm going South Africa on this one too. Are you gonna say New Zealand because of your land in New Zealand? Because I've checked, there's no land here for you, buddy.
Man, I'm going for the All Blacks.
Nice.
Nice. And then we have England and Fiji. I'm going for Fiji, obviously. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, I'm going for Fiji.
Fiji as well. And then the next game down the bottom there, we have France and Ireland. That's going to be another big game there.
Ireland.
You going Ireland?
Ireland.
Oh yeah, I'm going Ireland.
Yeah. Well, I'm going France on this one.
Why do you say France? Tell us a reason why France.
Host. We are the host. We've got the crowd behind us. By then, this is the quarterfinal. It's they're full of surprises. The French. You never write them off. Never.
And that's the challenge with the French. You never know what you expect them to come.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
Just before they played the first game against New Zealand, they lost the center, the biggest center they had, number 12, right?
Yeah.
Did they complain? No, they didn't. They just came and played. Whatever. They still beat New Zealand without the center. They were number 1 center that they had. So I think losing this guy as well, it's going to be very painful for them and very detrimental to their team. But we'll see how it goes. Well, according to this little plan that we have here, we're hoping to have someone Fiji at the final. But on the other hand, we can either have South Africa and Fiji playing the final. Do you think there's a chance of Fiji beating France or Ireland if they make it in the semis?
I think the way that it's looking now is that South Africa, if I was to choose South Africa to go through to the quarters, it's South Africa versus Wales, and then it's Ireland versus Fiji. And I just think that that might be a bridge too far for Fiji with Ireland. And I actually think it's going to be another South Africa Ireland final.
A rematch.
A rematch. Hey, look, first time Fiji gets into the semis. I mean, to me, that's realistic. I think they can definitely beat England.
They can.
Yeah, and the reason why as well is if they just work on that passing game that they were given opportunities during the Australian game, and they just blew it. You know, the one where they folded around blindside, and Tuisova threw that pass over to Radradra, and it just went out. And then you've got Hambosi on the other side, threw that pass. You know, neither level makes a breakthrough, passes to Hambosi, but then he just passes that ball, you know, outside, and it goes out of bounds. And that's what England don't have. And if Fiji can do that, I think they can make it to the semis. I think they can beat because they've developed that structural game. And not only that, they know that they can beat England. Just like they knew they could beat the Aussies, because most of those Aussie players that they had played against in the Super Rugby, you know, when they played for the Drua. So they said belief. They said there's a realistic belief that could propel them into the semis against Ireland.
Yeah. So Saki, you've said that you will see Ireland and South Africa back in the final.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially, okay, you said in the second podcast that Ireland will be one of the team in the grand final. What's your second team?
I'm going to call it. I'm telling you that Ireland will win the World Cup.
With who? Against who?
It doesn't matter who it is.
No. You can't play the final by yourself. Huh? You can't play the final by yourself, bro.
Just come to the wrong stadium.
Ireland is going to win.
I think he's playing the wrong game. That's like all your fights you won in the ring. They all didn't come to the ring. Remember when you used to box back in the days, special game? I think you won by...
I'm still boxing now.
Yeah, I think you won by 10 knockouts, eh? They all didn't show up. So who's Ireland playing in the final? For you?
For who?
For you?
I'll say you what the Rock said. It doesn't matter. Ireland's going to win the World Cup.
All right.
No, I'm going for South Africa, man. South Africa.
I'm going for South Africa and France in the final, and South Africa's going to win this one. But for me, I want Fiji to win. Okay, so let's base a little bit on a beautiful island of Samoa, how they did in the last two games against Chile. As we know, Chile came in really hot in that game, but they started really hot in the beginning, but then they went cold.
And they just chilled out.
They came in really hot, and then after that they got chilled. And that was it.
Stop it.
So Samoa got 43, did really well against Chile, but then...
I want you to concentrate on the person there that you bring up last time, Sake. Lima Sopoaga.
Yeah.
Go down to the bottom part. Christian Leali'ifano didn't have Sopoaga. If Sopoaga played, they would have won that game. Early yellow card. Look at that yellow card. Massive lost momentum to Samoa. I keep harping about the momentum. But man, they came to the end part of that game. They were on fire, however, too late.
Yeah. And unfortunately for Leali'ifano, I mean, he missed, 3 penalty kicks or something like that?
Crazy.
And he missed, I think he missed a free kick to touch or something like that. Yeah.
Cardinals in.
I mean, whereas on the opposite side, you got Boffelli. I mean, the guy scores 2 tries.
Yeah.
And he got his kicks in. I mean, the guy's a superstar. He's like, for me, Boffelli's like the MVP. Whereas I just felt that they should have brought Sopoaga in earlier. No, I mean, Leali'ifano, I think, I feel for him because, you know, it's probably his last World Cup.
Last World Cup, yeah.
And I just felt he just could have been subbed out earlier.
Yeah. I don't think I think they don't put is Sopoaga fit at all. I can't think they were playing most of the time.
I think he's injured.
I think he's probably
must be injured.
I think he's still injured, eh?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
How about this one here? How about this one? Our
you know what? It's really unfortunate that we had to play against Ireland in our first game because they're number one. And I think that the scoreboard from 60-16 doesn't really reflect on a team that should be kind of being in the World Cup. However, they learned from that game, and it was a good game that they played. However, I don't know what to say, but they just didn't. Ireland squeezed them out and really did really well. Scotland game against Tonga, they played much better. However, I mean, what I was really impressed about, gentlemen, is their set pieces, especially in the scrum. The scrum, they were very, very good in that, and also our line yards. And the try by Ben, Tamaefuna on the 44th minute was a classic. However, Scotland was just amazing in that game.
That was a bullocking run, hey, from Tamefuna. I mean, for a prop to do that, I think it was 15 meters out, and he just went for it.
That was just sheer desire.
That was
frustration from his end.
That was die for Tonga, man.
But look at that red card. You can't do well. And I think they would have been very competitive if it wasn't for that red card and that yellow card.
Yeah. I mean,
well done,
Special K. Can I ask you a question? If Tonga had to choose between the resources back at home, having a pathway like a Drua team per se, versus playing international games, tier 1 nations more often, what do you think would be more beneficial for Tonga?
Great question.
I mean, obviously, you'd want both,
mm-hmm.
But which one do you think would be more beneficial for Tonga? Because I was looking their run up to the games they played. I mean, Fiji were playing France and England, but Tonga wasn't playing any. I don't think they were playing that many tier 1 nations. They just played Pacific nations and had some warm up games with teams that went into like top 5.
I believe the opportunity wasn't given to them because all the games that are organized to play with tier 1s are normally organized by World Rugby, for it to happen.
Look, I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. You're only as good as your systems that you have in place, right? And the systems was found wanting in the Pacific level. Okay, so I don't see any of the benefits that would have came from there besides experience of getting smashed and hammered. The systems in place that Fiji has, and even I look at the Samoan has, I think that benefit from that game. However, we've got to get our systems right before we go into that next level, if that makes sense. So if they're not beating Fiji or Samoa in a high scoring or match, then I don't think that they will be competitive at all. It's almost you just go there to get flogged, right? Get our systems in place, get whatever we need to do, and then we win in the Pacific Cup by a big margin, and then from there go into the World Tier. I think that'll be great for them.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's hop into the games for this week. So the first game we have here is who's on the first game? Is that New Zealand versus Namibia? No. So on Friday we have Samoa versus Japan. This is going to be a very
I always look
interesting
forward
game.
to Japan and Samoa. I love Japan, but that's going to be an interesting game. But I think Samoa now have learned, and they will be competitive against Japan. And I think Samoa will win.
Yeah, I'm picking Samoa. It's a do or die for them, mate. If they still want to make it into the quarters, they have an opportunity, and then they have to come up against England later on. But they still, they have to start with Japan.
I hope Samoa wins this one as well. If they have to play Sapong, I hope they play Sapong on this one. Start.
Can I use a boxing analogy because I'm a boxer?
Yeah,
I thought you were a captain of a ship or something.
I'm a captain of the ship and I'm a boxer on the on the ship.
On the ship, okay.
Samoa. When I looked and watched them play, they've got a killer punch. Let's just say they've got a killer right hook.
Yeah,
but you can't use the killer right hook early or throughout the boxing, right? You got to kind of time it. You got to lead with the jab, and when you look at that Tafeuna when he scored that try, that's the killer punch.
Passion,
right? So they've got to kind of disguise it, play, get the scrumming right, get everything right. But their killer punch is about 10 meters. The Samoans were just ruthless. Nobody could stop that. So they've got to get to the right end of the game, right end of the field, and get the killer punch, and they can win. They can win against Japan. And 10 minutes when Samoa is 10 minutes in any team, I don't care who you are, they're gonna score.
Yeah. I just thought that they committed, they just committed these mistakes that just cost them. Like they would just lose the ball in the 22.
Yeah,
and I was like, if they just held onto the ball for a few more phases.
Be patient.
I mean, the weather didn't help them, But if they were just a little bit patient, man, they would have scored a couple more tries. I felt.
Yeah, I thought so. I think they left a lot behind. I mean, they didn't. Yeah, but
it kind of reminds me of like the Fiji Wales game.
Yeah,
where Fiji was just doing pick and goes on the try line of Wales, not even looking for that 1-2 outside pass, you know.
Yeah.
And they just got so narrow focused or narrow minded. Tunnel vision. Yeah. So
that's a problem when you have a boxer as your coach. Eh? Hey, Chris, okay. Okay, next game, Fiji and Georgia. What do you think of Fiji and Georgia's game? Think about Georgia. Georgia, most of their players, they play in European
you got to control their emotions.
They play in France.
Control their emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And play the game that the structure's right, and just play the game however it is, and manage that well.
Do you think they should be resting some of their key players?
Absolutely not.
No?
Absolutely not. I say put your best team against Georgia, and then when you're winning, hopefully by a halftime in a large margin, then you can sub your players.
Yeah.
But because the other thing is that you also need that continuity and that cohesion.
Yeah, good call.
that you displayed against the Aussies. You know, these boys
don't expect, Sake. I think what you're saying. Don't expect to don't go out to win the game in the first 5 minutes.
Exactly.
The first 10 minutes.
That's right. Because you don't need to score bonus points now.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Just win.
You just need to win the game.
Win the game. Do everything right. Get your systems right. Get your right, and just look at the timing. Okay, now we can score. Okay, let's score. Let's go back again. Reset.
Yeah. Play that structured game. But the thing that I feel that Fiji needs to improve on, especially against Georgia, is the combinations in the backline, which they will get a little bit more time on the ball.
Yeah.
You know, because the defensive. I'm not saying that Georgia's are not a good defensive team. I'm just saying that they're not as intense as the Tier 1 nations. You know, so this is a time really to hone in your combinations in the backline, because let's be honest, that game against Australia, you know, like I said before, they dropped, they threw those balls out of bounds. Really, I mean, that's timing, that's combination, and if they just practice that, especially in their Georgia game, with their set piece and their defense as the foundation of that game, then I think that they, and the kicking as the foundation of their game, then they can move the ball out a little bit more. But once they get those three parts of their game right, then I think they should then bring in their subs towards the end, because by then they should have been leading by more than 4 tries, I reckon. I mean, they should have scored 4 tries by then and leading by a good margin.
So I'm saying we're all going for Fiji on this game.
Fiji.
Okay. Last one, South Africa and Tonga. I'm actually going for Tonga in this game. I'm hoping Tonga will win this game against South Africa, because I think South Africa will let the guard down, shield down, everything here. They'll think Tonga has got nothing, but I think Tonga's got passion. I think that's one thing that I believe Samoa and Fiji don't have, is that passion for the game. And you can see, although they can't win any games, but I think they still have the fight in them. There's still something in there. And this is going to be their last game as well. So hopefully they can
add to that.
They can bring the biggest upset in the history of the World Cup, beating South Africa. And getting South Africa kicked out of their pool, out of the pool games as well. Again, just with Australia on its side.
I will add this. South Africa is historically a physical team. That's what Tonga likes. But if they play a skillful game, South Africa, Tonga's going to find it a little bit more difficult. And I think it will come to that. Can it be done? Yes. However, Tonga has to rise to this occasion and just play, well.
Do you think Samoa and Tonga has the capacity to play 80 minutes game?
Good question. What do you think, Saki?
I think they, judging by the results against the Tier 1 nations, I think Samoa has the ability to play that 80-minute game. Obviously Tonga need a little bit more work on that. But I think Fiji just started playing that. I mean, they've sort of developed their 80-minute game, but under intense pressure.
Yeah,
that's really the crux of the matter here, is that intense pressure. Can you play that 80? I mean, every team can play an 80-minute game, but under intense pressure, I think that's where because the fitness should be there because they're all professional players.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think they've had the experience to know how many games that they have lost in the last 10, 15 minutes. Right? And then they've come into the World Cup, one against England, because they played an 80 minutes game. Against Wales, did they play an 80 minutes game, Saki?
who Fiji?
Oh,
Yeah.
Fiji.
I think they fell off to
Yeah.
sleep in the first 20 minutes of that second half.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until the last half an hour where they just decided to wake up and then go for it. Yeah, that's my take.
Yeah. To answer your question, why? I think they want to play the 80 minutes game, but I don't think, especially Tonga, can keep that standard up. However, they're building, and I think it's a mental thing. I think, and they can do it. Samoa can do it, and they're more consistent in that way. But Fiji, I think, just tops it. I think they've had the experiences against top tier teams. They know that they can beat any top tier teams, but they had to play, and they did play the 80 minutes. Hence the reason why they've had so much success.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pascal. And yep.
Yeah, and just one last point there, Ovini. I mean,
yeah,
you know, the games now are like a 23-man game. You've got the South Africans bringing their bomb squad. You know, you've got like the Irish team who bring on that halfback who's just as good as Gibson Park. You know, the depth in their squad. I think for Fiji going into the quarterfinals, they need to somehow develop that depth on their bench, and they are. But it was a bit worrying to see the depth that bench come on and lose lineouts and start and their shape just sort of disintegrated there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for their defense and their speed at the rucks, they could have lost that game against Australia. But it was that last 20 minutes where they sort of fell away a bit. And when you talk about an 80-minute game, the people, those Kuravoli, like he cramped up. So if I was the coach, I'd be asking him to play a full 80-minute. You know what I mean? To get him used to, to get his legs used to that type of the stamina required to play an 80-minute game. Because can you afford that in the quarterfinals against England? The Aussies are not
almost going to play at your peak.
Yeah. So you want your starting players firstly playing a full 80-minute if they can, and just bring on the subs when they're injured or when they're tired, but not for subbing sake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Well, we wish all the best to Tongan team against South Africa, and also to a Samoan team against Japan this weekend, and also Fiji against Georgia this weekend. We hope that they'll all the best, and we're cheering for you. And thanks once again, Saki and Special K, for your time. And we'll touch base again end of next week for another episode of Contiki Rugby, and we'll discuss more about the games. And I think it'll be more exciting because then we're actually going to be talking about the finals. Hey, gentlemen.
The quarterfinals, yeah.
Yeah. Quarterfinals, semi-finals, and obviously Fiji in the final. Fingers crossed. But you'll have... Yep.
Exciting times. This is what we get out of bed to do. Love it. What a World Cup. It's amazing.
The best game in the world, rugby union, best game in the world. And this tournament is just getting better and better.
Better and better. And hopefully better luck next time for the Waz, after the game last week.
Up the Pars, bro. Up the Pars. Go the Panthers.
All right, gentlemen. Have a good weekend. We'll catch up again next week.
All right, guys.
Take
it easy.
Take care.